The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around Mining Station 7, a small human outpost on the edge of known space. Captain John Miller stood on the bridge of the station, watching his crew work through another normal day. The station housed 300 miners and their families, people who had come to this distant corner of the galaxy, seeking fortune in the rare minerals found in the asteroid belt. Everything changed when communications Officer Lisa Brown picked up an unusual signal. Her fingers flew across her console as she tried to clean up the transmission. The message was weak, broken, but unmistakably a distress call. It wasn't using any known alien communication protocol. It was pure, raw fear translated into electromagnetic waves. "Captain, you need to hear this," Lisa said, her voice tight with concern. She played the message through the bridge speakers. The sound that filled the room made everyone freeze. It was a child's voice, not human, but a child nonetheless, crying and pleading in an unknown language. The universal translator struggled, managing only fragments. "Help, please. They're killing everyone. Mother's gone." John felt his blood run cold. Behind the child's voice, they could hear explosions, screams, and the distinctive whine of energy weapons. Then another voice, harsh and mechanical, speaking in what the translator identified as Vrak Empire Standard. "Find the young ones. The slave markets pay well for them." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the Vrak Empire, a coalition of species that had built their economy on conquest and slavery. Earth's government had maintained an uneasy peace with them for decades, neither side willing to test the other's military might. "Sir, the signal is coming from the Kepler system," Lisa reported. That's a peaceful agricultural world. The inhabitants don't even have space flight capability." John's jaw tightened. He thought of his own daughter back on Earth, safe and happy. Somewhere out there, children were being hunted like animals. "Send the recording to Earth Command immediately. Maximum priority." The message traveled faster than light through the quantum communication network, reaching Earth in seconds. At Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral David Cooper was reviewing routine reports when the priority alert came through. He listened to the recording once, then again. His aide, Lieutenant Tom Wilson, watched as the Admiral's expression darkened. "Sir?" Tom asked quietly. David stood slowly, his decision made. "Lieutenant, send out the call. Code Black. Full mobilization of all fleets." Tom's eyes widened. Code Black hadn't been used in 30 years. It meant only one thing: humanity was going to war. "Sir, the Council will want to discuss." "The Council can discuss all they want after we've saved those children." David cut him off. "Humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers. We never have, and we never will." Within hours, the call went out across human space. On Mars, the First Fleet powered up their engines. In the shipyards of Jupiter, mechanics worked frantically to ready every available vessel. The colonies on Alpha Centauri mobilized their defense forces. Even the old veterans, retired pilots and gunners, reported to their local recruitment centers. The response was overwhelming. Humanity had been peaceful for decades, but they had never forgotten how to fight. More importantly, they had never forgotten why they fought. The idea of children being sold into slavery awakened something primal in the human spirit, a protective rage that had once made their ancestors the dominant species on Earth. Back on Mining Station 7, John watched his tactical display fill with friendly signals. Ships were jumping in from all over human space, massive dreadnoughts, sleek destroyers, carriers loaded with fighters. In 3 days, the largest human fleet ever assembled had gathered. Over 5,000 vessels, carrying 2 million soldiers, all ready to answer a stranger's call for help. The Vrak Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed humanity's peaceful nature meant weakness. They were about to learn that human compassion and human fury were two sides of the same coin. And when children were threatened, that coin always landed on fury. Admiral David Cooper stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the ESS Thunder. The massive dreadnought hummed with barely contained power as the fleet prepared for the jump to the Kepler system. Around him, his command staff worked with grim efficiency, coordinating the movements of the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. "Admiral, all ships report ready," Commander Anna White announced from her station. 5,200 vessels confirmed, all weapons hot, all shields at maximum. David nodded, looking at the tactical display. The fleet was organized into battle groups, each with a specific role. The heavy dreadnoughts would punch through enemy lines. The carriers would provide fighter support. The medical ships, because humans always brought medical ships, would save anyone they could, human or alien. On the planet below, Earth's President Mark Johnson addressed the United Earth Council. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've maintained peace for 30 years. But peace without justice is not peace. It's just delayed conflict. Today, we remind the galaxy that humanity will not stand idle while innocents suffer." The Council voted unanimously. For the first time in 3 decades, humanity formally declared war. Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, the Vrak Empire's forces continued their brutal harvest. Commander Thack of the Vrak military supervised the operation from his command ship. The reptilian alien scales gleamed under the bridge lights as he reviewed the profit projections. 3,000 young ones captured so far, each worth a fortune in the slave markets. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system," his sensor operator reported, confusion in his voice. It's impossible. Over 5,000 ships just appeared." Thek turned sharply. 5,000? What force has such numbers? The answer came in the form of a broadcast on all frequencies. Admiral Cooper's voice, calm but carrying unmistakable menace. "Vrak Empire forces. This is Admiral David, Cooper of the United Earth Fleet. You have exactly 1 standard hour to release all captives and surrender unconditionally. This is your only warning." Thak laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stone. "Humans? Those soft traders dare threaten the Vrak Empire? We have 800 ships here, each worth 3 of their merchant vessels." He was about to order his communications officer to send an insulting reply when his tactical officer spoke up, voice trembling. "Commander, these aren't merchant vessels. Energy readings indicate military-grade weapons. Classification: super heavy dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, carriers... Commander, their smallest ship outguns our largest." For the first time in his career, Thek felt fear. The Vrak had always dismissed human military capability, focusing only on their trading ships. They had never seen humanity truly angry. Back on the Thunder, David watched the countdown timer. 50 minutes. Around him, the crew prepared for battle. But this wouldn't just be a military victory. It would be a statement. Chief Medical Officer Dr. James Park had already prepared the medical base to receive wounded civilians. The supply ships carried not just ammunition, but food, medicine, and construction materials to rebuild what the Vrak had destroyed. "Admiral," Anna reported, "the Denver Battle Group reports they've detected life signs on the planet, thousands of civilians hiding in underground shelters. The Vrak haven't found them yet." "Good. Order the Marine transports to prepare for rapid deployment." "We're going to save every single one," David replied. In the Vrak fleet, panic was beginning to spread. Ships that had been leisurely collecting slaves now scrambled into defensive formations. Thak ordered his captains to prepare for battle, but many were already calculating jump coordinates for retreat. They had come here expecting easy prey, not the assembled might of humanity. The timer hit 30 minutes. On every human ship, Men and women who had trained for years, but never seen real combat, checked their weapons one more time. Parents looked at photos of their children, remembering why they were here. Young soldiers, some barely out of training, steadied their nerves. 20 minutes. The Vrak sent a message offering to negotiate. David didn't even respond. 10 minutes. Some Vrak ships began trying to jump away, only to find their jump drives mysteriously jammed. Humanity had brought interdiction fields. They weren't letting anyone escape. 5 minutes. On the planet below, a young alien child huddled with her siblings in a destroyed building. Heard something impossible through the smoke and fear. Ships speaking in soothing tones in her language. Telling her to hold on, that help was coming. 1 minute. David stood up straight. All ships, this is Admiral Cooper. Today, we remind the galaxy that humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. Today, we show them why Earth's children sleep safely. All ships, engage. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up space like a second sun. 5,000 ships fired simultaneously, their weapons creating a wall of destruction that slammed into the Vrak formation. The enemy's front line simply ceased to exist, vaporized in seconds by concentrated fire from humanity's dreadnoughts. Commander Thak watched in horror as a third of his fleet disappeared in the opening minute. His flagship's shield screamed under the assault. Return fire. All ships, return fire. He roared, but his orders were lost in the chaos. On the Thunder, Admiral Cooper watched the battle unfold with cold precision. Second wave, target their command ships. Fighter wings, launch now. 10,000 fighters poured from the carriers, moving like angry hornets toward the Vrak fleet. These weren't the slow, bulky fighters the Vrak were used to seeing from other species. Human fighters were fast, agile, and piloted by people who had grown up playing simulation games that were harder than this real battle. Jack Smith led Eagle Squadron through the enemy formation. His fighter danced between enemy fire, his reflexes enhanced by neural interface technology. Eagle Squadron, target their engine systems. Let's make sure none of these slavers ever leave this system. Below on the planet, Marine Captain Robert Davis led the first ground assault. Drop pods fell from orbit like metal rain, each carrying a squad of humanity's finest soldiers. They landed around the slave camps, their powered armor making them look like giants to the terrified Vrak guards. Marines, remember, we're here to save lives, Robert commanded through the com. Civilians are priority one. Any Vrak who surrenders loves. Anyone who fights back. Show them no mercy. The liberation of the camps was swift and brutal. Vrak guards who threw down their weapons were restrained. Those who tried to fight found themselves facing soldiers equipped with weapons that could punch through tank armor. But it was what happened next that would be remembered across the galaxy. Marine Medic Alice Green was the first to reach the holding pens. Inside, hundreds of alien children cowered in terror. They had been taken from a dozen different worlds, most orphaned by the Vrak attacks. Alice removed her helmet, showing her human face, and slowly knelt down. "It's okay," she said softly, her suit's translator converting her words. "We're here to help. You're safe now." A small blue-skinned child, no bigger than a human toddler, cautiously approached. Alice gently offered her hand. When the child took it, clinging desperately, Alice picked her up. "I've got you, little one. No one's going to hurt you anymore." This scene repeated across every camp. Human soldiers, trained for war, became protectors and comforters. They carried children to safety, gave them food and water, and wrapped them in thermal blankets. The medical teams worked tirelessly, treating injuries and trauma. Back in space, the battle had become a rout. The Vrak fleet, once 800 strong, was down to less than 200 ships. Some captains tried to surrender, sending distress signals and powering down weapons. Admiral Cooper accepted their surrender, ordering them to gather in a designated zone under guard, but Thack refused to give up. His flagship and 40 loyal vessels made a desperate run for the planet, planning to use the civilian population as hostages. They never made it. The human battleship Liberty, 3 times the size of Thack's flagship, moved to intercept. Captain Michael Brown's voice came over the comm. "You're done, Commander. Surrender or be destroyed. Humans are weak." Thack snarled. "You care too much about lesser species. It makes you vulnerable." Michael's response was calm. "Caring about others doesn't make us weak, Commander. It makes us dangerous. Because we're not fighting for profit or power. We're fighting for them." The Liberty's main guns charged with a distinctive whine. Thack had 1 second to realize his mistake before his ship was torn apart. With their commander dead, the remaining wrack ships surrendered. The battle was over in less than 3 hours. The Vrak Empire had lost 600 ships and 50,000 soldiers. Humanity had lost 12 fighters and 43 Marines, all volunteers who had charged into the heaviest fighting to save civilians. On the planet's surface, temporary shelters were being erected. Human engineers worked alongside freed prisoners to rebuild homes. Supply ships distributed food and medical supplies. Children who had been destined for slavery now played games with human soldiers. Their laughter slowly returning. Admiral Cooper received the final casualty report. Looking at the numbers, he spoke to his crew. "Today, we saved over 15,000 innocent lives. We've shown the galaxy that humanity will always stand against tyranny. This is why we became spacefaring. Not to conquer, but to protect." 3 days after the battle, the Kepler system had been transformed. Where Vrak slave ships once orbited, now human medical vessels and supply ships maintained protective watch. On the planet below, the real work of healing had begun. Dr. James Park managed the largest field hospital humanity had ever established. Row upon row of beds filled with civilians, not just from this world, but from dozens of planets the Vrak had raided. His medical team worked around the clock, treating physical wounds and psychological trauma. "Doctor, we need you in Ward 7, Nurse Betty called out. James hurried over to find a young alien girl, purple-skinned with 4 arms, crying inconsolably. Through the translator, he could hear her calling for her mother. James sat beside her bed, his voice gentle. "What's your name, little one?" "Farah," she whispered. "The bad ones. They took my mama." James carefully took one of her small hands. "Farah, we're looking for everyone who was taken. We have ships searching every Vrak station and outpost. We won't stop until we find all the families." This was true. Admiral Cooper had dispatched task forces to hunt down every Vrak slave ship and facility. The liberation of Kepler was just the beginning. In orbit, something unprecedented was happening. Representatives from 20 different species had arrived, drawn by news of humanity's intervention. Many of these were races that had suffered under Vrak oppression for generations, but lacked the military might to resist. Ambassador K from the Ultran Federation, a peaceful race of tall, slender beings, addressed Admiral Cooper. "Admiral, in our 200 years of suffering under the Vrak, no one has ever stood up for us. Why did humanity intervene? These weren't your people." David's answer was simple. They were children. That made them everyone's people. The ambassador's large eyes filled with what passed for tears among her species. The Ultran Federation formally requests to join the Human Alliance. Within hours, 15 other species made the same request. Humanity had unintentionally created the largest military alliance in galactic history, united not by conquest, but by a shared commitment to protecting the innocent. On Earth, President Johnson addressed the United Nations and the wider galaxy. Humanity has been called aggressive, dangerous, even primitive by some species. Perhaps we are, but we're also something else. We're protectors. Today, we announce the formation of the Guardian Alliance. Any species that commits to defending the defenseless is welcome to join. Back on Kepler, the reconstruction continued. Human engineers worked with local inhabitants to rebuild cities, but with improvements, defensive shields, early warning systems, and communication arrays that could call for help if needed. Marine Captain Robert Davis supervised the training of a local defense force. The inhabitants of Kepler, once pacifists, had requested to learn to defend themselves. Robert taught them not just combat, but the warrior's code humanity had developed. Strength used to protect, never to oppress. Meanwhile, the captured Vrak faced justice. A tribunal was established, with judges from multiple species. Those who had participated in slavery and murder would be punished. But humanity insisted on something that surprised everyone. The young Vrak, those who had been forced into military service, were offered a choice: prison or rehabilitation. Hundreds chose rehabilitation. They were sent to human colonies where they would learn trades, receive education, and most importantly, live alongside the species they had been taught to see as inferior. It was humanity's belief that hatred was learned, which meant it could be unlearned. One young Vrak soldier, barely an adult by his species standards, worked in a human hospital. He watched human doctors save the life of a Vrak prisoner who had been injured, treating enemy wounded with the same care as their own. "I don't understand," he said to Dr. Park. "He was your enemy. Why save him?" "Because that's what makes us different from them," James replied. "We don't become monsters to fight monsters." The greatest surprise came from the Vrak Empire itself. With their military shattered and economy in ruins without slave labor, they expected humanity to conquer them. Instead, humanity offered them a choice: reform or isolation. Join the galactic community as equals, abandoning slavery and oppression, or be permanently cut off from all trade and contact. The Vrak chose reform, though it would take generations to complete. As the human fleet prepared to leave Kepler. Now protected by a permanent garrison and defense grid, the inhabitants gathered to say goodbye. Children, those who had been saved and those who had never been captured, sang songs of gratitude. Parents wept with relief and joy. Asterisk. Admiral Cooper stood on the Thunder's observation deck, watching the celebration below. Anna stood beside him. "Sir, do you think this will last? The peace, I mean?" David smiled slightly. "There will always be those who prey on the weak, Commander. But now they know humanity is watching, and we will always answer the call." Asterisk 1 year had passed since the Battle of Kepler, and the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Guardian Alliance now comprised 43 species, with humanity at its head. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as protectors and teachers. On the space station Unity, built as the Alliance headquarters, Admiral Cooper met with the Council of Worlds. The massive chamber held representatives from every member species, their diverse forms, a testament to the unity humanity had inspired. "Admiral," spoke Elder Wren of the ancient Zelari race, beings of pure energy who had watched civilizations rise and fall for millennia. "The Zelari have observed many warrior races. The Krall conquered through strength, the Vrak through cruelty, but humanity... You conquer through compassion. It is unprecedented." David stood to address the assembly. "With respect, Elder, we don't seek to conquer anyone. We seek to protect. That's the difference." The meeting was interrupted by an emergency signal. Lieutenant Wilson rushed in with a data pad. "Admiral, we've received a distress call from the Outer Rim. Pirates are attacking a colony ship carrying families to a new world." Without hesitation, David turned to the council. "Who's closest?" The Altran Defense Force is 3 hours away, Ambassador K reported. And the Human Rapid Response Fleet? 40 minutes, sir. David nodded. Deploy them immediately. He turned back to the Council. But I want Altran forces to join them. It's time all members of this alliance learn to be guardians. The rescue was broadcast across the alliance networks. Billions watched as human ships arrived first, immediately engaging the pirates. But they didn't fight alone. The Altran ships, once too afraid to fight, joined the battle. Then came ships from the Kepler Defense Force, the same people who had been victims a year ago, now racing to save others. The pirates were overwhelmed, not just by firepower, but by the unity they faced. The colony ship was saved, all families aboard unharmed. On Earth, schools taught a new curriculum. Children learned not just about human history, but about every species in the Alliance. They learned languages, cultures, and most importantly, empathy. The next generation would be even better guardians than their parents. At the newly established Guardian Academy on Mars, young beings from all Alliance species trained together. A human cadet helped a 4-armed Varex student with targeting practice. An Ultron taught a human the mathematics of faster-than-light navigation. Old enemies became new friends. Captain Robert Davis, now an instructor at the Academy, addressed the newest class. You come from different worlds, different species. Some of your peoples were once enemies. But here, you are all guardians. Your strength will be used to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is the oath you take, the burden you bear, and the honor you earn. In the deepest parts of space, where pirates and slavers once operated freely, they now moved in fear. Stories spread of the human fleets that appeared from nowhere when innocents were threatened. Some called them demons, others angels. But all knew one truth. Harm a child, anywhere in the galaxy, and humanity would come. The transformation of the Vrak was perhaps the most remarkable. The young Vrak, who had chosen rehabilitation, had returned to their homeworld as teachers and reformers. They brought with them human ideas about dignity, freedom, and the value of all sentient life. The old guard resisted, but change was inevitable. Former Commander Thak's son, who had been captured at Kepler and chose rehabilitation, now served aboard a human ship as a junior officer. He stood beside his human captain as they responded to another distress call, this time from a Vrak colony under attack by criminals. "Sir," he said to his captain, "my people once caused such suffering. Why do you trust me?" Captain Brown smiled. "Because you chose to be better than your past. That's all any of us can do." The rescue of the Vrak colony by a joint human-Vrak crew became legendary. It showed the galaxy that redemption was possible, that enemies could become allies, that the cycle of hatred could be broken. As the years passed, the phrase, "call the humans," became synonymous with hope across the galaxy. Children were told stories of the warriors who came from Earth, who fought not for gold or glory, but because it was right. Admiral Cooper, now older, but still commanding, stood on Earth looking up at the stars. His daughter, now grown and a ship captain herself, stood beside him. "Dad, do you think we've really changed things?" He smiled, thinking of all the lives saved, all the children now growing up free. "We've shown the galaxy that strength without compassion is meaningless. That's humanity's gift to the stars, not our technology or our military might, but our belief that everyone deserves protection." Above them, the stars twinkled with the lights of thousands of ships bearing the Guardian Alliance symbol, a human hand holding a shield, protecting a child. The message was clear across the galaxy. Humanity stands watch, and the innocent will always have protectors. Asterisk.